Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly incredibly common dynamic in the modern workplace. We're going to look at how a leader's totally genuine desire to be indispensable can actually, and quite accidentally, turn into a massive systemic risk for their entire organization. We're talking about the journey from being the ultimate problem solver to becoming, well, the ultimate bottleneck.
Consider this really powerful paradox. The maturity of a leader is not measured by the decisions they make, but by the decisions the team makes without them. It makes sense, right? A lot of leaders start their journey simply because they're incredibly competent, they're reliable. They're always the ones who just sort things out. And at first, that quality is an absolute gift. The whole organization learns to rely on them. But over time, this exact same gift can unconsciously transform into a really quiet, silent trap. All right, Section 1, the bottleneck trap. Let's dive right into this transition and see exactly how supportive leadership morphs into dangerous centralization. What starts out as a genuine desire to be helpful gradually becomes strict centralization. I want you to imagine a giant funnel. Every single decision, every approval, every little doubt, and every team conflict, it all starts to converge on just one person. Now, on the surface, maybe from the outside looking in, it might look like strong, decisive leadership. But in reality, it creates a severe bottleneck that just completely halts the organizational flow. All of that fluid, dynamic movement just gets stuck right at the neck of the bottle. Moving into Section 2, the cycle of dependency, let's look at why this actually happens, because to fix it, we really have to understand the psychology behind it. This trap rarely comes from ill will or some conscious desire to hoard power. It usually stems from much deeper, unexamined needs, maybe a need for control, a lack of trust, or this deep-seated fear of losing your value if you aren't the one fixing everything. Consider the principle of reciprocity, studied by Murray Bowen. Basically, in any relational system, when one part does way too much, another part is naturally going to do too little. They generate each other. So, when the leader overfunctions, making all the decisions, resolving every problem, constantly redoing everyone else's work, the team just naturally underfunctions. They stop deciding, they wait for approval, they start bringing you problems instead of solving them. The leader's overfunctioning literally creates the team's lack of initiative. And this brings us to the tyranny of competence. Look, when a leader is highly skilled, it seems perfectly logical for them to just step in and solve the problem. But that logic builds a trap. The team starts experiencing what psychologist Martin Seligman calls learned helplessness. Basically, when your decisions are repeatedly overruled or your initiatives are constantly superseded by the boss, you quite simply learn not to act, period. So as a leader, you really have to ask yourself a tough question. If I'm no longer the one solving things, who am I? That unconscious fear of losing your identity is exactly what strips the team of their autonomy. Okay, Section 3, the price of control. Because the effects of this dynamic aren't just psychological, they are structurally dangerous to the business. What's absolutely wild about this next concept is how it exposes the fragility of the entire operation. It's known as key person risk. It asks one very simple question. How many people would need to suddenly disappear for your entire system to just grind to a halt? If that number is 1, your system is maximally fragile. Plus, there is a massive, massive cost to your throughput, the actual volume of work your system can get done. Why? Because every single decision that's waiting on the leader just joins a queue, and that entire queue is limited by one single person's attention span. Let's break down exactly who pays the price for this fragility, because it is a cascading cost across the board. The leader, they face chronic overload, massive decision fatigue, and a huge risk of burnout. The team suffers too, dealing with dependency, frustration, and completely stunted growth. The system itself gets hit with slowness, limited throughput, and a huge underutilization of human potential. And finally, the culture. The culture suffers from reduced psychological safety and seriously eroded trust. Literally nobody wins here. And all of these costs, they completely drain the fundamental energies of the organization. Mentally, decision overload just consumes all your attention. Emotionally, it creates this constant state of vigilance for the leader and deep frustration for the team. Physically, the total inability to disconnect leads straight to chronic activation and burnout. And spiritually, by being so overly focused on just doing and solving, the leader actually loses the higher function of what true leadership is all about. Which brings us to Section 4, the 4 pillars of happiness. Because the crucial point here is how we actually fix this machine and restore all that lost energy. To dismantle this bottleneck, we have to actively distribute autonomy, and we can do that using 4 pillars. First up is being. Leaders have to develop self-awareness and really distinguish their personal value from their daily role.
Your worth isn't about control, it's about helping other people grow. Second is we, building that crucial psychological safety so the team actually feels competent and takes on shared responsibility. Third is discipline. Listen, delegating requires immense intentionality. You have to build crystal clear processes and accept that people are going to learn through controlled mistakes. A leader who tolerates absolutely zero mistakes is just forcing themselves to do everything forever. And finally, positive chemistry. Distributing autonomy actually lowers the stress levels for everyone involved, placing the entire system in a much healthier, more favorable biological state.
All right, final section. Section 5, true leadership. Let's redefine what it actually means to manage effectively and look at the ultimate goal.
Here is the core takeaway of our explainer today. A truly resilient organization does not depend on a single person. True leadership is about leaving space. It's about actively building trust. And ultimately, the true measure of your success is making your own role less and less indispensable over time. You want the system to run flawlessly, even if you aren't in the room. So, I want to leave you with this one single, powerful question to challenge your own daily habits. Tomorrow, when you log into work, take a hard look at your task list and ask yourself, am I growing the system or am I becoming the system? The answer to that question will tell you exactly what kind of leader you're choosing to be.